What if I told you the calmest man in Dodge City was hiding one of the loneliest jobs on television, and that the actor who made it look easy is not the only name on this list who paid a real price for it? Gunsmoke put you right in the middle of a dusty frontier town, where one lawman kept the peace with a stare and a slow walk, where a saloon full of strangers could turn into a gunfight in one wrong second, and where every face on the street felt like it belonged there. For 20 years this show built a whole world you could trust. But time did not go easy on the people who built it, and by the end of this list you are going to hear about a heart that gave out too soon, a bottle that never really let go, and one career pivot so wild you would never guess it started here. Number 1, we have a man who barely raised his voice and somehow controlled an entire town with it. He stood taller than almost everyone around him, and directors loved him for it long before Dodge City ever existed. This is James Arness, who played Matt Dillon. He had already worked in films like The Thing from Another World before Gunsmoke made him a household name, and for 20 seasons he never once let the badge feel routine. Arness lived to 88 and passed in 2011 from natural causes, closing out a life that started strong and somehow stayed strong the whole way through. He gave you a hero who never had to prove he was one. Number 2, we have the town's most trusted grump, a man who could patch up a bullet wound and insult you in the same breath. Long before this role, he had spent years quietly grinding through Hollywood without ever landing a part that fit. This is Milburn Stone, who played Doc Adams. Once Gunsmoke found him, everything clicked, and Doc became one of the most beloved characters on the show. In 1980, a heart attack took Stone at 75, ending the run of a man who finally got the role he had been chasing his whole career, only to lose the chance to enjoy it for very long. Number 3, we have a deputy who sounded like he wandered off a mountain trail and just never left. But before he ever set foot in Dodge City, he was already famous for something completely different. This man used to sing. This is Ken Curtis, who played Festus Haggen, and before Gunsmoke, he had been a vocalist with the Sons of the Pioneers and appeared in John Ford classics like The Searchers. He brought music and grit into every scene he touched. In 1991, a heart attack ended his life at 74. You would never guess the scruffy deputy with the backwoods drawl once stood on stage singing in perfect harmony. Number 4, we have a deputy who limped through Dodge City and somehow became one of the most beloved men on the show. But off-camera he was quietly building a completely different legacy. This is Dennis Weaver, who played Chester Goode. After Gunsmoke, he stepped out of Chester's shadow entirely, landing his own hit show called McCloud, and later becoming a serious voice in environmental causes, which almost nobody expects from a limping cowboy sidekick. Weaver passed in 2006 at 81 from complications of cancer. He proved a supporting character could still build a whole second life. Number 5, we have a man who barely spoke on screen, but off-screen he was living a completely different kind of terrifying. This bartender's calm face hid a career playing one of the most iconic monsters ever put on film. This is Glenn Strange, who played Sam the bartender. And yes, this same actor famously played Frankenstein's monster in several Universal horror films. Somehow the same man who filled Dodge City's saloon with quiet calm also filled movie screens with pure fear. Strange died in 1973 at 74 after a battle with lung cancer. Not many actors can say they built a town's favorite bar and a monster's legacy in the same lifetime. Number 6, we have a young face who rode into Dodge City fresh and easy to like. And here is the twist. Out of this entire cast, he might be the one still standing today. This is Buck Taylor, who played Newly O'Brien. After Gunsmoke, he kept the Western spirit alive through Tombstone and even Yellowstone decades later. And somewhere along the way, he became a respected Western painter, trading his gun for a paintbrush. As of 2026, Taylor is 88 years old, making him one of the last living links to this entire legendary cast. You are looking at one of the rare survivors of a show that started 71 years ago. If you are already picking a favorite, drop their name in the comments, because trust me, the list is only getting heavier from here. And we drop new stories like this every 2 days if you want to keep going down memory lane with us. Number 7, we have a quiet, steady face who never needed a big scene to matter, the kind of man you would trust to run the freight office without asking questions. This is Ted Jordan, who played Burke. He appeared in episode after episode, becoming part of the show's everyday rhythm rather than a flashy guest star. Jordan died in 2005 at 80, with the cause never widely reported, closing out decades of steady, unglamorous work that helped hold Dodge City together. Number 8, we have a musician who found his way into the background of nearly every dusty street scene Dodge City ever filmed. This is Rudy Sutter, who appeared as a townsman, and he was also a songwriter long before television needed weekly westerns to fill living rooms across the country. He died in 1991 at 85, 'cause not widely reported. Sometimes the man in the background had a whole other career you never knew about. Number 9, we have one of the saddest faces in all of Dodge City, a man who looked like life had already beaten him before the story even started. This is James Arness, who played Louis Feeders, the town drunk. He spent years in small roles, even appearing on Perry Mason, before turning this broken character into something audiences genuinely cared about. Arness died in 1979 at 74, not widely reported. He made you feel sorry for a man who never even got a proper introduction. Number 10, we have the very first face pouring drinks behind that legendary bar, long before the saloon became the heart of the show. This is Burt Reynolds, who played the bartender in the early years. He had been acting since old Hollywood westerns, and his steady presence gave the Long Branch its first real texture. He died in 1968 at 75, not widely reported. Number 11, we have a background face so common in classic Hollywood that you have probably seen him in 3 other shows without ever learning his name. This is Matthew McHugh, who appeared as a townsman. He spent his career in uncredited roles across westerns and dramas like The Fugitive, doing work that never got applause but always got noticed by the camera. He died in 1966 at 70, not widely reported. Number 12, we have a lean, weathered face built for exactly one thing: filling the frontier with believable, hard-earned realism. This is Clem Fuller, who played Clem. He spent his career blending into westerns and crime shows as cowboys, guards, and rough men passing through. Fuller died in 1961 at just 52, not widely reported, one of the youngest deaths on this entire list. It has been over 70 years since Dodge City first opened its doors on American television, and you are still hearing these names today, which honestly says everything about how deep this show went. Number 13, we have a man who did double duty every single day on set, acting in one scene and risking his neck in the next. This is Pete Kell, who appeared as a townsman and also worked as a stunt performer, later bringing that same grit to shows like Star Trek. He died in 1982 at 59, not widely reported. Number 14, we have a man whose name alone sounds like it belongs on a wanted poster. This is Cactus Mac, who appeared as a townsman, and he came from an entire family of Western performers, giving Dodge City a kind of authenticity you cannot fake with makeup or costume. He died in 1962, at 62, after a heart attack. Number 15, we have a face that traveled a lot farther than Dodge City ever did, all the way from another country before landing in the American West. This is Michael Jeffers, who appeared as a townsman, born in England and spending years in uncredited Hollywood work. He died in 1990 at 92, not widely reported, quietly outliving almost everyone else on this list. Number 16, we have a young, clean-cut deputy who showed up during the show's middle years and gave fans a break from all the grizzled, weathered faces around him. This is Roger Ewing, who played Thod Greenwood. He later worked on shows like Rawhide and Death Valley Days, before stepping away from acting entirely and living a quiet private life. Ewing died in 2025 at 83, not publicly released, making him one of the most recent losses connected to this classic cast. Number 17, we have the man who always knew who checked into town, who was starting trouble, and when to keep his mouth shut. This is Howard Culver, who played Howie at the Dodge House. He built a long career across radio and television, including Dragnet and Adam 12, before Gunsmoke gave him a steady recurring home. He died in 1984 at 66 after contracting meningitis. If you have made it this far, do us a favor and hit subscribe, because the next name on this list went on to become one of the biggest movie stars of the entire decade, and almost nobody remembers where it started. Number 18, we have a young, dark-haired blacksmith with a restless spark in his eyes, the kind of energy that simply could not stay contained in one small frontier town forever. This is Burt Reynolds, who played Quint Asper. Long before the mustache, the fast cars, and the charm that defined Smokey and the Bandit, he was cutting his teeth right here in Dodge City. He went on to headline Deliverance, The Longest Yard, and Boogie Nights, becoming one of Hollywood's biggest names. Reynolds died in 2018 at 82 after suffering a heart attack. You are looking at a future superstar hiding in plain sight in a blacksmith's apron. Number 19, we have a slow-moving, weathered man who made the livery stable feel like a real place instead of a backdrop. This is George Selk, who played Moss Grimmick. He spent years playing small frontier roles before Gunsmoke gave him a familiar recurring face fans could count on. Selk died in 1967 at 73, not widely reported. Number 20, we have a young woman whose face you have probably seen without knowing it, tucked into the background of shows like Batman and the Wild Wild West. This is Michelle Breeze, who appeared as a saloon girl inside the Long Branch. Her repeated presence gave the saloon its everyday movement and life, the kind of detail that makes a set feel like a real room full of real people. She died in 2016 at 73, cause kept private. That means more than 50 years passed between the last time Michelle Breeze walked across that saloon floor and the day she passed away. Half a century carrying a small piece of Dodge City with her the whole time. Number 21, we have the gentlest man on this entire street. Someone who never needed a gun to matter to this town. This is Dabbs Greer, who played Mr. Jonas the storekeeper. Beyond Gunsmoke, you probably know him as Reverend Alden on Little House on the Prairie, a role that let his warmth reach a whole new generation of viewers. Greer died in 2007 at 90 after a battle with kidney disease. Few actors on this list lived as long or stayed as gentle as he did. Number 22, we have a rugged, steady presence who spent his whole career blending into nearly every classic Western on television, not just this one. This is Rod McGawahy, who appeared as a townsman, also showing up in Bonanza and Have Gun Will Travel. He died in 2011 at 87, cause not widely reported. Number 23, we have a dry, weathered storekeeper who felt like he had been watching Dodge City change for decades before the camera ever rolled. This is Woodrow Chambliss, who played Lipa. He worked steadily in both film and television, but this recurring role became the one Western fans remember best. Chambliss died in 1981 at 66, cause not widely reported. Number 24, we have an old, wiry man who looked like he had been part of this town since before the first plank was ever nailed down. This is Hank Patterson, who played Hank. He had a long road through classic Hollywood westerns before later winning new fans as Fred Ziffel on Green Acres. Patterson died in 1975 at 86 after suffering from bronchial pneumonia. He carried old-timer charm that simply cannot be taught. Number 25, we have saved the biggest heart of Dodge City for last. A woman who ran the most famous saloon on television and never once let it define her as fragile. She knew this town's danger better than most of the men who carried guns through it. This is Amanda Blake, who played Miss Kitty Russell. Away from the cameras, she became deeply devoted to animal welfare, especially the protection of big cats and endangered wildlife, a passion that revealed a whole different side of her far from the saloon doors. Blake died in 1989 at just 60 years old from complications related to AIDS, one of the earliest and most painful losses connected to this legendary show, and a reminder that even the strongest woman in Dodge City was fighting a battle the whole town never got to see.